Let me ask you a direct question. Why do some men enter a room and no one can ignore them, while others talk, explain, make an effort, and yet go unnoticed? The answer has nothing to do with beauty, money, or luck. It has to do with strategy. Machiavelli already taught something that few dare to accept. The world doesn't function based on pure intentions, but on politics guided by reality, not by ideals. And here's a counterintuitive statement that might bother you. Being totally transparent, always available, and emotionally predictable is the fastest path to irrelevance. The end justifies the means when the means are your strategic evolution. Better to be feared than loved. Perhaps the real secret is better to be impossible to read than easy to control. If you've ever felt like you give too much and receive too little, if you've ever noticed that the more you explain yourself, the less respect you're received, then maybe you're playing the wrong game. The appearance of virtue matters, yes, but without virtu and fortuna, it doesn't hold up. The calculated use of force isn't aggression, it's self-control. Your own loyal armies aren't medieval soldiers. They're discipline, silence, and decisions based on real human nature. And all of this requires constant adaptability. In this video, you'll understand how to destroy the predictable version of yourself, master perception, control emotions, and build a presence that completely changes how the world reacts to you. It's not about cheap manipulation. It's about conscious influence. It's about ceasing to be led and starting to lead. And if you stay until the end, you'll realize it's not about becoming cold, but about becoming strategically unshakable. If something inside you awakened while listening, don't ignore that feeling. This channel isn't about videos, it's about memories. Remember who you were before the fear, before the exhaustion, before the silence. Each new video here is a different reflection of your own soul, an invitation to understand what the world never taught you. The power you seek outside has always been within you. If you feel that this journey speaks to what lives silently within you, sign up now. Not to follow yet another creator, but to reconnect with something the world tried to make you forget. Because here, every word was made to heal, each reflection to awaken, and each video serves as a reminder. You are not alone on the path back to yourself. Click on subscribe and turn the algorithm into a daily reminder of who you really are. He needs to understand one thing right away. Nobody becomes intriguing by maintaining the same comfortable version of himself. This weak version isn't a lack of physical strength, it's predictability. It's always reacting the same way, talking too much, excessively justifying oneself, seeking approval like someone begging for emotional alms. And here's a truth few dare to face. Machiavelli never believed in transformation based on good intentions. He spoke of politics guided by reality, not by ideals. In other words, it's no use wanting to be respected if you continue to behave like someone easily manipulated. The end justifies the means when the goal is your evolution, and that begins with an internal rupture. He needs to kill the insecure character who tries to please everyone. Is it better to be feared than loved? Perhaps not literally, but he needs to stop seeking superficial love and start avoiding being hated for weakness. There's a brutal difference between kindness and submission, and he needs to face this without romanticizing it. This symbolic death doesn't happen in a pretty motivational speech. It happens when he starts making decisions based on real human nature. For example, if he knows he always responds to messages immediately, creating an image of constant availability, perhaps it's time to practice strategic silence. If he tends to over-explain himself in a meeting, perhaps he needs to try shorter, firmer sentences. Virtu and fortuna are not blind luck. They are preparation meeting opportunity. The calculated use of force begins with small actions. Maintaining a firm posture, holding eye contact for 2 seconds longer, not laughing at every joke just to be accepted. Does it seem like a detail? Well, that's precisely where the game is. In the modern world, having your own loyal armies means self-control, mental discipline, and non-negotiable standards. He can no longer be governed by impulses. The death of the old self requires constant adaptability, abandoning habits that no longer serve and building new daily rituals. And here's something practical. He can start with a silent behavioral audit for 7 days. Note when he sought validation, when he spoke more than necessary, when he reacted emotionally. Read Machiavelli's The Prince, not as a political manual, but as a psychological mirror. Observe how real leaders behave. Few speak, much observe. Politics guided by reality, not by ideals, means accepting that the world responds to signals of strength, not to requests for recognition. He can practice this in small settings, in a conversation with friends, in a simple negotiation, even in a family discussion. The end justifies the means when the means are discipline. Better to be feared than loved? Perhaps the point is, better to be respected than ignored. This transformation begins internally, silently, almost invisibly, but inevitably, the world notices. And when he ceases to be predictable, a new layer of power emerges, a layer that already points to something even more strategic: mystery. He has already begun to dismantle the predictable version of himself, but now he needs to understand the next level. It's not enough to be strong, one must be unreadable. Mystery is a social armor. Machiavelli knew that the appearance of virtue is often worth more than the display of virtue itself. Politics guided by reality, not ideals, means accepting that whoever reveals everything about themselves loses bargaining power. When he reveals his plans before executing them, he gives away ammunition. When he exposes his insecurities to anyone, he offers the map to his own manipulation. The end justifies the means if the goal is to preserve strategic advantage. Better to be feared than loved may sound extreme, but there is a more subtle point. Being enigmatic generates automatic respect. Avoiding being hated remains essential, of course, but it is also necessary to avoid being easily deciphered. Virtù and fortuna walk hand in hand when he learns to speak less and observe more. The calculated use of force here is silence. His own loyal armies begin within the mind. Emotional control is the elite troop. And all of this requires constant adaptability. In practice, the mystery isn't being cold or antisocial, it's being selective. It can begin with reducing exposure on social media. There's no need to share every achievement, every step, every emotion. Decisions based on real human nature show that people value more what they don't have full access to. For example, in a work environment, instead of announcing ambitions, one can work quietly and let the results speak for themselves. Instead of immediately responding to provocations, one can simply look, smile slightly, and change the subject. It seems simple, but it's a calculated use of emotional power. Politics guided by reality, not ideals, teaches that predictability generates external control. One can test this. In a group conversation, speak last. Listen to everything before taking a position. Machiavelli would say that whoever controls the information controls the game. The end justifies the means when the means are strategy and not cheap manipulation. There is also an inner mystery, the one that prevents him from reacting impulsively. Virtue and fortune favor those who maintain composure. He doesn't need to explain why he decided something. He needs to stand by the decision. Is it better to be feared than loved? Perhaps it's better to be respected for firmness than admired for excessive transparency. Avoiding being hated remains a basic rule, so no gratuitous arrogance. The appearance of virtue remains a tool, acting with elegance even when calculating the next move. His own loyal armies mean keeping strategic thoughts guarded, sharing them only with those who truly contribute. Constant adaptability implies knowing when to speak and when to be silent. Mystery is not absence, it is controlled presence. And when he masters this invisible armor, he begins to perceive something even more powerful. There is a force that doesn't need to be announced, only felt. He is no longer so predictable, he no longer exposes himself too much, but there is an even more refined stage, the strength that doesn't need to be announced. Machiavelli understood something that many ignore. Power that is declared too much becomes propaganda. Real power becomes atmosphere. Politics guided by reality, not by ideals, teaches that those who constantly need to prove their importance do not yet truly possess it. The end justifies the means when the means are a solid internal construction. Better to be feared than loved. Perhaps the point here is better to be felt than explained. He doesn't need to say he is disciplined. He simply wakes up early and does what needs to be done. He doesn't need to say he has self-control. He demonstrates it when everyone loses their heads and he remains stable. Avoiding being hated remains strategic, so no aggressive theatrics. The appearance of virtue comes in as a tool. Erect posture, measured speech, firm gaze. Virtu and fortuna favor those who prepare in silence. The calculated use of force here is self-restraint. Own and loyal armies. These are daily habits, and this requires constant adaptability. In practice, silent force means mastering real skills. One can invest in strategic reading, The 48 Laws of Power by Robert Greene, for example, to understand social dynamics, The Prince by Machiavelli to understand politics guided by reality, not ideals, or even books on communication like How to Win Friends and Influence People by Dale Carnegie to understand real human nature. Decisions based on real human nature show that people trust those who demonstrate consistency more than those who speak loudly. A simple example, in a meeting, while everyone is vying for attention, he makes a short and surgical intervention, no long speeches. The end justifies the means when the means are preparation. Is it better to be feared than loved? Perhaps it is better to be respected for silence than admired for noise. The calculated use of force lies in choosing the exact moment to act. Having your own loyal armies is a matter of technical skills, learning negotiation, finance, oratory. This builds a real foundation, and there's something almost invisible in all of this. He begins to realize that external validation becomes irrelevant, not because he despises others, but because he understands the logic of politics guided by reality, not by ideals. The appearance of virtue remains useful, but it doesn't replace competence. Virtu and fortuna meet when opportunity arises, and he is already prepared. Avoiding being hated remains a strategic rule. Elegance always. Constant adaptability means adjusting posture according to the environment without losing essence. Silent power doesn't need applause. It's perceived in the environment as a slight tension, a natural gravity. And when he masters this unannounced force, he realizes that the real risk lies not in the lack of power, but in the impulsive reactions that can destroy him. Now he begins to understand a delicate point. It is not the lack of power that destroys reputations, but impulsive reactions. Machiavelli would never advise anyone to act driven by wounded pride. Politics guided by reality, not by ideals, means recognizing that the world provokes to test weakness. The end justifies the means when the means is strategic self-control. Is it better to be feared than loved? Perhaps it is better to be unpredictable than emotionally transparent. Avoiding being hated remains essential, but reacting with public outbursts creates exactly that, rejection and loss of authority. The appearance of virtue here functions as a shield, maintaining composure even under attack. Virtù and fortuna favor those who do not give up the game in the heat of the moment. The calculated use of force is not about shouting louder, but about choosing when to speak and when to retreat. Your own loyal armies are emotional discipline and mental clarity, and this is only maintained with constant adaptability. In practice, he can train what's called a strategic interval. Received a provocation, don't respond immediately. Count to 5. Breathe. Ask yourself, what outcome do I want? Decisions based on real human nature show that impulsive people are predictable, and predictability is vulnerability. A simple example, in a salary negotiation, upon hearing a proposal below expectations, he doesn't react with frustration. He remains silent. Silence is more unsettling than indignation. The end justifies the means when the means are cold calculation. Better to be feared than loved. Perhaps the point is that those who maintain emotional control command respect effortlessly. Politics guided by reality, not ideals, teaches that emotions are natural, but demonstrating them unfiltered gives away an advantage. He can apply this to family discussions, professional environments, even social media. The appearance of virtue helps maintain external balance while processing internally. And here's the detail few realize. Calculated moves build an invisible reputation. Virtù and fortuna appear when he acts at the right moment, not on impulse. Avoiding being hated requires not acting out of revenge or resentment. The calculated use of force may mean waiting weeks before making an important decision. Owned loyal armies are habits like strategic journaling, weekly planning, and reading about negotiation. Constant adaptability means adjusting strategy as the scenario changes. He begins to realize he doesn't need to react to everything. Some battles are disguised traps. Politics guided by reality, not ideals, teaches that whoever controls their own reaction controls half the game. And when he masters this, an even deeper question arises. What if true power lies in emotional detachment? He begins to realize that the greatest weakness of any man is not a lack of intelligence, but uncontrolled attachment. Attachment to the opinions of others, attachment to validation, attachment to people who clearly do not reciprocate. Machiavelli already warned that politics guided by reality, not by ideals, requires seeing relationships as they are, not as we would like them to be. The end justifies the means when the means is to preserve one's strategic sanity. Better to be feared than loved. Perhaps the most practical translation here is better to be emotionally independent than dependent on approval. Avoiding being hated remains intelligent, but trying to be loved at any cost opens the door to manipulation. The appearance of virtue may maintain external elegance, but internally he needs virtù and fortuna, strength of character and contextual understanding. The calculated use of emotional force begins when he learns not to react to the fear of losing someone. His own loyal armies represent solid self-esteem and a clear purpose. And all this requires constant adaptability. In practice, emotional detachment doesn't mean coldness or cruel indifference. It means not placing your identity in someone else's hands. Decisions based on real human nature show that the more someone perceives you as dependent on them, the more power they have over you. A simple example, if he cancels important appointments whenever someone calls him at the last minute, he's signaling excessive availability. Politics guided by reality, not ideals, teaches that value is perceived through scarcity. He can start by setting small boundaries, not responding immediately, not changing personal plans for every invitation, not accepting disrespect, just this once. The end justifies the means when the means is preserving dignity. Is it better to be feared than loved? Perhaps it's better to be respected for clear boundaries than loved for submission. The calculated use of force here is saying no calmly. And there's something even more subtle. Emotional detachment broadens strategic vision. When he's not consumed by fear or neediness, he can see invisible games. Virtue and fortune favor those who maintain inner balance. Avoiding being hated means not using coldness as a weapon of humiliation. It's control, not cruelty. The appearance of virtue maintains an ethical stance, while internally he assesses the situation. His own loyal armies are trusted friends, personal projects, and financial goals that prevent him from centering his life on a single relationship. Constant adaptability implies knowing when to get close and when to distance himself. Machiavelli understood that those who don't control their own emotions end up being controlled by others. And when he masters this detachment, he realizes that there is an even more refined level of power, controlling not only his emotions, but the perception that others have of him. He already controls his emotions, no longer reacts impulsively, no longer clings to despair. Now he enters a more sophisticated territory, perception. Machiavelli made it clear that the appearance of virtue is often more powerful than raw virtue. Politics guided by reality, not by ideals, means understanding that the world judges by what it sees, not by what you feel. The end justifies the means when the means are strategic positioning. Is it better to be feared than loved? Perhaps here it is better to be interpreted as strong than explained as strong. Avoiding being hated remains a basic rule. Perception is not arrogance, it is narrative. Virtù and fortuna come into play when he learns that reputation is built on details, posture, tone of voice, word choice. The calculated use of force is not about vulgar manipulation, but about directing social perception. Own and loyal armies represent coherence and consistency, and of course, constant adaptability. In practice, controlling perception begins with aligning image and behavior. Decisions based on real human nature show that people associate authority with calmness, clarity, and consistency. He can adjust small points, clothing more aligned with the context, less slang in formal environments, more objective answers in professional situations. Politics guided by reality, not ideals, teaches that intention is not enough. Communication shapes reality. A concrete example: if he wants to be seen as a leader, he needs to take responsibility publicly and resolve conflicts firmly. The end justifies the means when the means is image discipline. Is it better to be feared than loved? Perhaps it is better to be recognized as someone difficult to manipulate than as someone easy to please. The calculated use of force appears when he decides what to reveal and what to keep private. But there's an almost invisible detail in all of this. Perception is a continuous narrative. Virtù and fortuna favor those who understand timing, when to position themselves, when to retreat, when to remain neutral. Avoiding being hated means not using manipulation to humiliate or deceive. It's strategy, not cheap trickery. The appearance of virtue must be sustained by real competence, otherwise it crumbles. Your own loyal armies include strategic allies who reinforce your reputation. Constant adaptability implies adjusting your posture according to the environment without losing your essence. Machiavelli spoke of politics guided by reality, not by ideals, because he understood that perception shapes power. And when he masters this art, he begins to see something inevitable. It's not enough to control how the world sees him. He needs to choose who remains around him. He may master mystery, self-control, and perception, but if he remains surrounded by energy-draining people, everything crumbles. Machiavelli understood something essential. Loyal and personal armies are more important than fragile alliances. Politics guided by reality, not ideals, means accepting that not everyone deserves unrestricted access to your life. The end justifies the means when the means are to preserve your growth. Better to be feared than loved. Perhaps the practical translation here is better to be respected for your limitations than loved for your complacency. Avoiding being hated remains strategic, but trying to please everyone creates invisible wear and tear. The appearance of virtue may maintain external cordiality, but internally, he needs virtu and fortuna to recognize who adds and who subtracts. The calculated use of force in this context is knowing when to say, "That's enough," and that requires constant adaptability. In practice, he can conduct an honest audit of his own social circle. Decisions based on real human nature show that people tend to drag down those who begin to evolve. Who mocks his plans? Who laughs at his goals? Who only shows up when they need something? Politics guided by reality, not ideals, teaches that true loyalty is proven by actions, not pretty words. A simple example: if he shares a new project and receives sarcasm instead of constructive support, that's strategic. The end justifies the means when the means is cutting ties that weaken. Better to be feared than loved. Perhaps it's better to be seen as selective than as someone available for any kind of energy. The calculated use of force might mean reducing contact, not over-explaining, simply stepping away gracefully. But be warned, unforgiving boundaries are not aggression, they are clarity. Virtue and fortune favor those who build alliances with disciplined, ambitious, and loyal people. Avoiding being hated remains important, so no unnecessary dramatic breakups. The appearance of virtue maintains a mature posture while he reorganizes his network. His own loyal armies in the modern world can be mentors, professional colleagues, business partners who share a similar vision. Constant adaptability implies renewing the circle as it evolves. Machiavelli spoke of politics guided by reality, not by ideals, because he understood that influence is contagious. And when he begins to carefully select who walks beside him, he realizes that the next level is not just choosing people, it's choosing what to sacrifice now to dominate the future. He already understood that he cannot react impulsively, that he cannot become too attached, and that he needs to choose his alliances carefully. But now, he enters a territory that separates ordinary men from rare strategists, the ability to postpone pleasure. Machiavelli never spoke of immediate comfort. He spoke of virtu and fortuna, patient preparation until the right moment to act. Politics, guided by reality, not by ideals, means accepting that sustainable success is rarely instantaneous. The end justifies the means when the means is constant discipline. Is it better to be feared than loved? Perhaps here it is better to be disciplined than popular. Avoiding being hated remains relevant, but trying to be accepted in the present can compromise the future. The appearance of virtue can sustain a balanced image, but true strength lies in invisible constancy. The calculated use of force at this point is resisting temptation. Having one's own loyal armies is a solid habit. And all this requires constant adaptability. In practice, delayed gratification begins with small daily choices. Decisions based on real human nature show that most people seek immediate pleasure, excessive entertainment, impulsive spending, instant validation. He can reverse this. Instead of spending money on momentary status, he can invest in assets, stocks in solid companies, real estate funds, strategic education. Instead of binge-watching distractions, he can dedicate an hour a day to reading works that shape mindset, such as Machiavelli's The Prince, or books on financial strategy. Politics guided by reality, not ideals, teaches that future freedom is born from present sacrifices. The end justifies the means when the means is to renounce current comfort to achieve autonomy later. Is it better to be feared than loved? Perhaps it is better to be respected for lasting results than admired for superficial achievements. The calculated use of force appears when he chooses to work while others rest. But there's something even deeper in all of this. Delayed gratification builds identity. Virtue and fortune favor those who don't give up halfway. Avoiding being hated implies not turning discipline into arrogance. It's silent constancy. The appearance of virtue maintains humility while building invisible wealth, financial, intellectual, and emotional. Having one's own loyal armies is routine. Waking up early, training the body, studying the market, planning annual goals. Constant adaptability means adjusting the plan as the economic or personal scenario changes. Machiavelli understood that politics guided by reality, not ideals, requires a long-term vision. And when he masters this ability to wait, he begins to discover something even more challenging: the ability to endure his own company in the silence of construction. He sacrificed immediate pleasures, severed fragile relationships, and controlled his emotions and perception. Now he arrives at a point many avoid: solitude. Not dramatic solitude, but strategic silence. Machiavelli understood that politics guided by reality, not ideals, requires moments of detachment to see the whole picture. The end justifies the means when the means is conscious withdrawal. Is it better to be feared than loved? Perhaps here it is better to be self-sufficient than dependent. Avoiding being hated remains a social rule, but seeking company merely to escape emptiness is disguised weakness. The appearance of virtue maintains a serene posture before others, but internally he needs to strengthen virtu and fortuna, character and scenario reading. The calculated use of force here is voluntary isolation. His own loyal armies are organized thoughts and clear goals, and this is only sustained with constant adaptability. In practice, comfort in solitude begins with small rituals. Decisions based on real human nature show that many fear being alone because they avoid confronting their own minds. One can start by setting aside weekly moments without digital distractions. Long walks without headphones, reflective writing, strategic planning. Politics guided by reality, not ideals, teaches that clarity arises in silence, not noise. A simple example: instead of filling every free minute with social media, one can study the financial market, develop technical skills, or practice public speaking in front of a mirror. The end justifies the means when the means is self-knowledge. Is it better to be feared than loved? Perhaps it's better to be whole alone than fragmented in the wrong company. The calculated use of force lies in transforming isolation into a mental laboratory, and there's something powerful about that. Darkness reveals hidden weaknesses. Virtue and fortune appear when he faces insecurities without an audience. Avoiding being hated isn't a priority in this space. Here it's about internal confrontation. The appearance of virtue is useless when he's alone. Only authenticity remains. His own loyal armies are convictions built far from applause. Constant adaptability implies adjusting plans after deep reflection. Machiavelli spoke of politics guided by reality, not by ideals, because he understood that strategic vision is born from silent observation. When he learns to enjoy his own company, he becomes less vulnerable to external manipulation, and at that point, something begins to solidify, an identity so solid that few can access it, and even fewer can influence it. He traversed the death of his former self, learned the mystery, mastered silence, controlled impulses, filtered relationships, and cultivated discipline. Now it's no longer about isolated technique, but about integration. Machiavelli spoke of virtu and fortuna as forces that meet when man is prepared. Politics guided by reality, not by ideals, means he no longer lives on romantic illusions about how the world should work. The end justifies the means when the means are the strategic construction of one's own identity. Better to be feared than loved. Perhaps the final stage is to depend on neither. Avoiding being hated remains intelligent, but it doesn't govern one's decisions. The appearance of virtue continues to be a tool, but now supported by real competence. The calculated use of force is natural, almost instinctive. One's own loyal armies are not merely external allies, they are habits, values, mental discipline, and all this demands constant adaptability. In practice, becoming untouchable doesn't mean arrogant isolation, but structural independence. Decisions based on real human nature show that those who are not emotionally, financially, or socially dependent on others are difficult to manipulate. This can be achieved by diversifying income sources, investing in continuous education, and strengthening body and mind. Politics guided by reality, not ideals, teaches that freedom is born from preparation. A concrete example: maintaining a financial reserve that covers months of expenses, developing skills that allow for professional mobility, creating a strategic network of reliable contacts. The end justifies the means when the means is autonomy. Is it better to be feared than loved? Perhaps it's better to be seen as someone impossible to pressure. The calculated use of force appears when one knows they can get out of any situation that compromises their values. And here is the high point of this transformation. He stops reacting to the world and begins to move the world around him. Virtù and fortuna cease to be concepts and become daily practice. Avoiding being hated remains prudent, but no longer paralyzes him. The appearance of virtue becomes natural, not fabricated. His own loyal armies signify internal confidence and external strategic alliances. Constant adaptability ensures that he does not become rigid in the face of change. Machiavelli understood that politics guided by reality, not by ideals, is the basis of any solid leadership. When he integrates all these principles, he becomes difficult to manipulate, difficult to intimidate, difficult to control. Not because he is aggressive, but because he is conscious. And at this stage, he no longer seeks to prove anything. He simply is. Now tell me something. After all this, do you still want to remain predictable? Or are you ready to truly apply this policy guided by reality, not by ideals? Because knowledge without action is entertainment. And you didn't come this far to be distracted. You came to transform your attitude. Machiavelli spoke of virtù and fortuna, but made it clear that luck favors the prepared. So I ask you, what habits will you abandon today? Where do you still react impulsively? In which relationships do you need to apply firmer boundaries? The end justifies the means when the means are discipline. Is it better to be feared than loved? Perhaps the final point is, it is better to be strategically respected than emotionally dependent. If something in this video bothered you, that's great. Discomfort is a sign of growth. Decisions based on real human nature require the courage to step out of fantasy and face the game as it is. The appearance of virtue may open doors, but the calculated use of force keeps those doors open. Your own loyal armies begin within your daily routine. Constant adaptability is what will keep you relevant while others remain stuck in comfort. So tell me in the comments, which of these principles will you apply first? Mystery, silence, strategic severing of relationships? I want to know which point resonated with you the most. And if you want to keep learning how to become increasingly impossible to manipulate and difficult to ignore, subscribe to the channel now and turn on notifications. Because here we don't talk about empty theory. We talk about applied strategy. Machiavelli understood the world as it is. And if you want to dominate the modern game, you need to think the same way.